Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Śrīmati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivasesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarane. Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Yeah. No. Because then I can't read if it's right in front of my face. But if I'm not speaking loud enough or into the microphone, Prabhu, you tell me, okay? Okay, thank you. Mande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Sijiva Gopalako. Mansakalpatubhasya Kripasinduvevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. This is the first time I've ever given a class in a cricket stadium. So, I don't want to lose any wickets, and we'll see how we do. But one thing I need is something to drink. Excuse me just for a moment. Yesterday, just opposite the temple in Melbourne, we spoke about the 7th chapter of Madhya Lila of Caitanya Caritamrita and how Mahaprabhu began his tour of South India. How many of you are from South India? Okay. How many of you from North India? How many of you are spirit souls? We are one in that sense, and we are all Surupai Krishna Nityadas. I was once giving a class in Delhi, and I said to the whole class was on, you're not your body, and your spirit, soul, eternal servant of Krishna. And then I said, all of you look a little bit the same in some way. How many of you are Punjabis? And everyone raised their hand. I said, wait a second, I just tricked you. Because it's so difficult to not identify with our body. It's so difficult to not identify with our minds. But really, our minds will change, our intelligence will change, our body certainly changes. But our relationship with Krishna actually never changes. We're his eternal servants. And if we can live in that relationship, there's no limit to how deep and how intimate our relationship with Krishna can be. Practically speaking, there is no limit. And that's what Caitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching. So when he decided to tour South India, he wanted to spread his mercy, his association and his mercy to the people of South India. He had just taken sannyas several months before. And how he did this is going to be described in this chapter, because the instructions that he gave to the people he met as he was touring South India were very important for each and every person he met throughout his 2-year tour, and very important for us. And I chose to speak on this chapter because I found it there's some very important instructions in it. And especially towards the end of the chapter, when I read it, the last time I read it, I found something so mysterious that connected to the first part, but we're not going to be able to get to that today, I think. So I'm not sure how to deal with that. But anyway, I'm going to tell you what Mahaprabhu did as he was traveling. First, you almost have to see a picture in your mind of this beautiful, young sannyasi dressed in saffron garments and who is known as Gauranga Mahaprabhu because of his complexion. He was effulgent and so powerful and internally fixed in love in his relationship with Krishna, and he was ecstatic. And that ecstasy was overfilling. It was like a cup that was being filled continuously with ecstasy, and that ecstasy was overflowing through his eyes in the form of tears. What are you looking for, Prabhu? Because everyone was looking at you. I also wanted to look. They move? No. I'll move. Because we started talking about Mahaprabhu dancing, and of course they also wanted to dance. I also want to dance, but I can't. No. I think we're okay. Long as this is here. But thoughtful. So Mahaprabhu was dancing down the roads as he was heading south from Jagannath Puri. And people had never seen anything like this. His ecstasy was very intoxicating for whoever saw him. And just like if you have a cold and you sneeze, everyone catches your cold. So everyone was catching the ecstasy of Mahaprabhu when they saw him and by his association. And in the mood of a sannyasi, he was chanting, Krishna, Krishna, because this is the mood. Just Krishna, 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 Rakshamam, Krishna, hey, Krishna, Keshava, Rama, Raghava, Pahimam, Rakshimam, protect me, save me, care for me. Because in this material world, if we are caring for ourselves, if we have no other carer than ourselves, we may be very proud, we may be intelligent, we may be wealthy, we may be influential, but eventually, our own potency, our own capacity runs out. And then we find we are helpless. Have any of you ever come across such a situation in your life yet, at this point in your life? Just without, have any of you? Raise your hand, or some way to let me know. But, usually, we have that confidence that we can push through anything. But the nature of material existence, the very nature of the world, the nature of the material universe, that at some point it will not cooperate with the illusion that I am in control and I can keep control. At some point, it must happen because that is the very nature of the material world. So some people will think, oh, that's very bad. Unfortunate, but actually it is the greatest opportunity, it is the greatest fortune if, conditional phrase, if we learn how to take shelter of Krishna. There's a saying that Mare Krishna Rake Ke, Rake Krishna Mare Ke. Does anyone know the meaning of that? You know? Yes, Prabhu.
If Krishna wants to kill you, no one can kill you. If Krishna wants to protect you, no one can
harm you. Yes, could you hear that? Whoever Krishna wants to protect, no one can harm. And whoever Krishna wants to khatam ho gaya, no one can protect that person. So a devotee, gotripte varanam tata, he gives himself to Krishna. And he places himself when I say his self, I mean herself, his self. places himself fully under Krishna's protection at all times. That is actually what it means to be a devotee. It means that there is no ahankara, there is no false ego. In false ego, we think we are independent of Krishna. And when we think ourselves independent of Krishna, when we look at this world, we imagine, and I say imagine, that this world is meant for me and my pleasure. And that I'm really going to achieve something in this world. I can do something wonderful. I will achieve fame, fortune, great happiness. But again, the material world isn't set up to give us that kind of success. The real success of material world is to be always dependent on Krishna. Even the greatest scientists, whether they're devotional, whether they're religious or not, their greatest realizations, their greatest scientific discoveries don't come through their intellect piercing the problem. They come as inspiration. Savasya chaham videsana. They come as inspiration. Sometimes I saw this one scientist he wasn't a Nobel laureate, but he was a big scientist who was, of course, he was a little arrogant, but he thought in the middle of the night, he woke up and he woke his wife up and said, "I just understood how the universe was created." Now, of course, no one can really understand how one can guess and speculate and have his own theory. But he didn't get it by his own intellectual prowess. It just came to him as he was sleeping. This is the way it works. We are all dependent on Krishna, but what it means to be a devotee means to be consciously, willingly, and affectionately, while serving Krishna, while serving him because of the relationship with Krishna, by continuously serving him, and placing oneself under Krishna's protection as palya. Palya means servant. Protected means protected. So to a materialistic person, or a person who doesn't have that understanding of what it means to be under Krishna's protection, that sounds very frightening. Harbal, how are you today? Now you're getting into UCLA. It used to be Harvard. Maybe that's for your postdoctorate. So for a person who isn't spiritually inclined, who is materially inclined, this sounds like a very horrible proposal and minimizing oneself and faulty, but actually it is the greatest freedom from anxiety, is to be under Krishna's protection and know that he's always protecting you. I heard Prabhupada speak about this maybe today or yesterday. He was speaking about the prayers of Kunti Devi. And he was talking about such an unusual verse that she spoke, because Krishna was leaving, Hastinapur for Dwarka. The battle of Kurukshetra had been won by the Pandavas, and now Yudhisthira was the king and she was the queen mother. And previously, the Pandavas were in such difficult circumstance. One problem after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. And now, all the problems had been solved. The Pandavas had defeated the Kauravas. Those who were envious of them, those who wanted to kill them, and righteousness was restored to the throne. But when they were in difficulty, Krishna was always with them. And she was preferring difficulty with Krishna because of the dependence of Krishna that the Pandavas had and she had, tightly always holding on to Krishna. To her, she preferred the vipad, the difficult, disastrous times with Krishna, that shelter, that feeling of security, then she preferred that to being the successful queen, mother of the world. Very difficult to understand, because usually we turn to Krishna, yes, to remove the difficulties, and then when the difficulties are removed, we tend to maybe even perhaps sometimes forget Krishna and just try to enjoy our life. But these were real devotees. In good times and bad times. It's relationship. They loved Krishna, and Krishna always loved them. Yes. So Mahaprabhu, in the mood of a sannyasi, was chanting Krishna's names, Rama, Raghava, Krishna, 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 Kesava, Pahimam, Rakshamam. But he was in such ecstasy, experiencing his relationship with Krishna. Of course, he was the Supreme Lord, but he was teaching at the same time how to live in this world successfully. What is success in this world? What is the cause of happiness in this world? It is really only this attaining the shelter of Krishna, regardless of what our service is, what our life is, regardless of our karma, our fate, the good and the bad in our life. Everyone has a mixture of difficulty and pleasures and happiness and distress. But the real success is not to remove the distresses and pull happiness closer. The real success of life is to develop that quality, unshakable quality of dependence in loving relationship with Krishna. What do you think about that? Now, who's going to say no at this point? But to live it is another thing. And that's what we really want. Even to give the class on it is one thing. But to live like a mighty warrior, in a sense, like Arjuna. He wasn't a cowardly, I'm going to sit at home in my cave and depend on Krishna and lock the door and start a fire at the front of the cave. Why would he start a fire? Why would someone put a fire at the front of the cave? No, there's no cave dwellers here, obviously. Why would he? From the animals that might come in the night and hide in there. No, that's what Arjuna wanted to do, but Krishna told him, this is your duty. You go out and you fight right now. But, mam anusmara yudhya, you remember me as you're engaged in your life. And your life, as much as we practically can, should be in Krishna's service of the one who will protect us. It's just completely natural. It's completely natural. Completely natural. So Mahaprabhu was teaching this as he walked down the roads of going to South India, chanting in ecstasy. And everyone who saw him was so attracted to him. There's someone who's not getting what they want. That was the meaning of that cry. But what do you want? What does she want? Okay. And mother is afraid that she's going to disturb us and cry. Much as you have to bounce her. Bounce it. Distract. Because, see, it's the same thing with us. You know, we're, in one sense, we're just big kids. Because what do we do when we want something or something doesn't go our way in life? And how do you... We look for distraction. Krishna comes to us to teach us in... And he teaches us to take shelter of him, to turn towards him, and we look for distraction. What's your favorite distraction? And no one has to raise their hand and say what it is, because it's, what's your favorite distraction? No, you don't have to. No. When I said you don't have to raise your hand and say what it is, I didn't mean you don't have to raise your hand and say what it is. But we all know we have favorite distractions. To what? Distract us from what? That you can raise your hand and answer. To distract us from what? There's a relief in taking a distraction, but what is the distraction from? Hayagriva? What do we like to get distracted from? What do you like to get distracted from? That's too general. Something specific. Huh? That's too general. Something specific. Okay. Yeah, that kind of thing. That's also general, but we don't want to get too much into the details of these kind of things. So many stresses in life and work. And then there's the stresses of family, and then there's financial stresses, and there's health stresses, and then there's this person said this, and that stress, and that person, I'm going to a wedding, and she's wearing the same sari as me. You know, what am I going to do? I thought if someone could invent a sari that, like, if you press a button, it can change its color in an emergency, it'd be a big winner. But so many stresses in life, and especially in Kali Yuga. So these stresses, these anxieties are actually, even though it's easy to talk about them, and when they're happening to me, it's hard to do it, but it's the blessing of Kali Yuga. It's the blessing of Kali Yuga because the holy names are there for us at any time and any place. Even Sisikonitaya here, at some point, they will go home and they will go to their beds, and then you won't be able to see them. The deities, Radhaballava Gaunitai and Sisi Radhaballava, Jagannath, the curtains will close and the doors will close and you won't be able to see them. But the holy names can be with you at any time, any place. They're there for you. And Krishna is there in the form of his holy names. What did I just say, Hayagriva? Yeah, all the time. Krishna is always there in the form of his holy names. So Mahaprabhu was teaching this, and the ecstasy of the loving relationship with Krishna has captivated everyone who sees him. And the ocean of his love for Krishna is overflowing from his eyes in the form of tears. So, I've moved to another chapter. I have to move back here. So, chanting this verse, Krishna, 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 Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Rakshama. He went on his way. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Gauda Hari, he went on his way. And as soon as he saw someone, he would request him to chant, Hari, Hari, Hari Bol. So he'd tell them to chant, and his ecstasy was so great that immediately they would begin chanting. His potency, his power. And after some time, the Lord would embrace these people and bid them to return home, having invested them, given them, each of them with spiritual potency. each of these empowered persons, so what to speak of seeing him, which filled everyone who saw him with such ecstatic happiness, but then he would embrace them. And it's like if you touch the iron that's in the fire, it would be so hot. So similarly, touching the spiritual body of Mahaprabhu filled them, empowered them. And each of these empowered persons would return to his own village, always chanting the holy name of Krishna, and sometimes laughing, crying, and dancing. They would be experiencing Krishna and his holy names by the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Such an empowered person would request everyone and anyone, whomever he saw, to chant the holy name of Krishna. In this way, all the villages would also become devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'd like actually to read all of Srila Prabhupada's purports, but I won't be able to. But you should do that, please. But I'll read this one. It's very short. In order to become an empowered preacher, one must be favored by Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu or his devotee, the spiritual master. One must also request everyone to chant the Mahamantra. In this way, such a person can convert others to Vaishnavism, showing them how to become pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What do you remember from that? Raise your hand. Only Amul remembers something. Everyone else is shy. No? Mataji's remember anything? Okay. Everyone is shy, though. Yes. I'm going to read it again. Some secrets in here, too. Simple purport, short purport, but some secrets. In order to become an empowered preacher, one must be favored by Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu or his devotee, the spiritual master. Now, I'm sure you all remember that. One must also request everyone to chant the Mahamantra. Did anyone ever request you to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? We're all here because someone requested us. In this way, such a person can convert others to Vaishnavism, showing them how to become pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, what struck you in that simple purport? Something struck me, but what struck you? Did you just raise your hand? Are you sure? Sometimes when people go like this, they sort of want to and don't want to at the same time. Did anything strike you in that? What did Prabhupada mean by saying he showed them how to become pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? You didn't raise your hand, but I'm going to call on you anyway. But not only by chanting. Yeah. Because of their purity, and their acting on that platform, because they're having been blessed to act on that platform, they were fire hot, so to speak. And therefore, by the touch of them, by their example, they were showing others how to become pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of God. And that we saw in Srila Prabhupada. In his presence, it was always very, he had something that you wanted to share you wanted him to share it with you, and he was sharing it with you, but you weren't quite qualified to be able to receive what he was sharing with you. There was such a sweetness in the bubble of his association. Not only sweetness, though, but power. And not only power, but authority. So sometimes when he was sitting on the Vyasasan in Melbourne, he was like a lion. There was so much authority there. But other times when you were just talking to him, he was carrying that sweetness. And what was that sweetness? Does anyone know? I got some hints of it myself. Yeah, will you go? Yeah. Compassion. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you've heard me tell this story before. Yeah, he was carrying, as far as I could understand, he was always in his relationship with Krishna in Vrindavan. Mataji, are you cold? Are you okay? Yeah, you're okay. Because I saw you like this. Either I'm talking too loud and frightening you, or you're cold. I wasn't sure which one. I was hoping it was you were cold, so I won't talk so loud. I could tell you this story, how I understood it, but there was a sweetness. But I won't, because we're not going to be able to read anything. But he was living in that relationship, and he was fearless because of that. He was fearless. He was fearless. He was fearless. So Mahaprabhu was walking down the roads, dancing down the roads, and people from different villages who came to see such an empowered individual, not even Mahaprabhu, but those who he empowered, would become like him simply by seeing him and receiving the mercy of his glance. When each of these newly empowered individuals returned to his own village, he also converted the villagers into devotees. And when others came from different villages to see him, they were also converted. In this way, as empowered men, they went from one village to another, and all the people of South India became devotees. Thus many hundreds of people became Vaishnavas when they passed the Lord on the way, and they were embraced by him. In whatever village Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu stayed to accept alms, to accept bhiksha or prasadam, people came to see him. By the mercy of the Supreme Lord, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, all these persons became first-class devotees, and later they became teachers or spiritual masters and liberated the entire world. In this way, the Lord went to the extreme southern part of India, and he converted all the provinces to So, what Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj is doing is giving a general overview of how Mahaprabhu acted as he toured from village to village, walking, touring from village to village, as he traveled throughout South India for 2 years before he returned to Jagannath Puri. So Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not manifest his spiritual potency at Navadvip, but he did manifest them in South India and liberated all the people there. So Prabhupada in his purport explained some points. Yes. So that was the first part of his tour. There's a few more verses. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's empowering of others can be understood by one who is actually a devotee of the Lord and who has received his mercy. That means that we may hear this. The nature of children is what? Fill in the blank. What would you say? Restless. What else? Excuse me? Playful. What else? Matajis don't know. What else? Loud, yes. That was the one I was thinking of. They have so much strength in their voice. And according to Ayurveda, strength of voice means, loudness means strong and healthy. So it's so good that our children are exceptionally strong and healthy. But sometimes they also need to be supervised. But Okay, who remembers the last thing I read? Let's see who is really paying attention. Yes. Yes, but there was one point after that which relates to the next verse as well. Yes. Yes. Yes, but there was one point after that. Yes. Yes, but there's one point after that. And I also read that one point, yes. Yes, but it wasn't, yes, exactly. But it wasn't Prabhupada who said that, it was Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. This was the exact verse. Very mysterious verse, because we're all hearing it. But some of us perhaps hear it as a story. But some of us really understand what Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is. Now, what is the difference between one level of hearing and another? So Krishnadas Kaviraj says, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's empowering of others can be understood, I mean really understood, accepted too, by one who is actually a devotee of the Lord and who has received his mercy. So to even deeply understand these things takes mercy. To deeply accept and have full faith in them, it takes mercy. One who is actually a devotee of the Lord and who has received his mercy. So how does that make you feel? Jai, I'm a great devotee of the Lord. Not usually. We understand our position as aspiring to be devotees of the Lord. But then to make it even heavier, Krishnadas Kaviraj says this, and listen to this very carefully. Hare, you ready for something very heavy? Are you sure? Okay. If one does not believe in the uncommon transcendental pastimes of the Lord, he is vanquished, both in this world and in the next. Because if we don't trust these activities and the words of Kaviraj Goswami, of Srila Rupa Goswami, of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Sanatana, and Srila Prabhupada, if we don't, then we won't really be able to give our heart to their instructions. And if we don't give our heart to the instructions fully, well, if they're just a little part of our life, and maybe one day I'll do this, and maybe if I can, if I have time, and if I have the energy, and if I don't have any exams coming up, or if I don't have this, or if I don't have that, then maybe at some point when life becomes perfectly peaceful and facilitates me, then I'll take shelter of Krishna, like Mahaprabhu is teaching. And I will tell you that very rarely that time will ever come. Because the world is full of distractions. And soon as, raise your hand if you keep a to-do list. Yeah, I also do. Do you? Huh? Yes. Well, that's the purpose of a to-do list. So you don't even need it to get distracted. You're expert. Because what is a to-do list? I mean, the way I look at a to-do list is, these are all the things I want to do, I have to do, that are pressing to do, and then when I get all them done, then I'll be able to do what I really want to do, and what's really important to me. But I have found, mysteriously, that my to-do list is never empty. It like magically refills itself continuously, and I never get around to what I really feel is most important in my life. That's the nature of the material world. It's like as if spiritual life on one level demands 24 hours a day. And on the other side, material life demands 24 hours a day. So we tried to keep our balance. And I even heard Prabhupada speak about this very morning, that we have to balance the practical material things we do with the spiritual necessities of life. But he was speaking to a group of people where he was saying you should also take up some spiritual life and make sure that your material life has the balance of spiritual life in it. But Mahaprabhu was teaching what it's like when you give yourself fully to Krishna and you've minimized to such a degree, not that Mahaprabhu didn't eat or take care of his body, but acting as a great devotee, he minimized it. Because, and Prabhupada would say this about Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they were so busy and so ecstatic in their spiritual life that they would sleep an hour and a half a night, or sometimes they would forget even to do that. Not that you're not allowed to sleep more, but naturally, it just naturally came because of their spiritual excitement. So I have to say now that we should not imitate anyone. We have to be honest and see what our situation is, and never imitate. But sometimes we have to go forward a little bit. Otherwise, our material life will completely take over everything. And then we'll find ourselves very old suddenly. And age has its way of imperceptibly almost moving on us. And suddenly, as I can personally experience, we find ourselves old. And then, do we want to be the kind of person who looks back and says, what happened to my life? What happened to my life? So we want to use our life in such a way that at the same time we, not artificially, but at the same time as we do, we carry on our material life, but we really, really give up the divided mind. I find myself thinking about this quite a lot nowadays, that we want to make our life, our material life, harmonious with our spiritual life, so that both bring us upward. And our material life ceases to be a material life. It's used in the service of Krishna in our spiritual life. I find myself thinking in this way and seeing lots of Shastra to support this. And then whether one is Grihe Tako, Mane Tako, Sara, Dako, always call out the holy names. And the key in this, I've also seen clearly, directly, what the key in doing this is hearing Shastra. And if we don't have the time to hear Shastra, then that's going to, or chant Krishna's holy names and associate with devotees, because in the association of devotees, that's where the hearing Shastra and the chanting takes place mostly. Then the balance of our material life will certainly take over. So this point is very important, and the cure is also given. Associate with devotees, chant Krishna's names, and hear about Krishna. Yeah. So we don't want to become vanquished and become old and decrepit like Some of us already are. And then look back and say, what happened to my life? What have I really gained in my life? What have I really gained in my life? We don't want to have that kind of regret. And even people have done sociological surveys on older people, and asking them what they regret. Elderly people nearing the end of their life, asking them what they regret most. And the statistics show that it's usually not, oh, I did this one thing that I shouldn't have done, but it's just the opposite. That I didn't do this thing, and I really wished I did do it. And this is just from the material point of view, what to speak of from the spiritual point of view. There's a little story that I personally, somehow or another, Krishna really gave this one to me. That there was one in Vrindavan, when Prabhupada had just started the Gurukul in Vrindavan. He asked one of his disciples who was in Bombay, at that time it was Bombay, to come in. He was an experienced headmaster of a school in Bombay. And he was already older and he was retired. And Prabhupada asked him to come to be in charge of the school in Vrindavan that was just beginning. And somehow or another, the actual letter that Prabhupada sent to him came into my hands. And I have that. And then, but I never met this person, and I didn't know really anything about the history or anything like that. And the person didn't come. And the reason he gave to Prabhupada was, my family really needs me. And then, in early 1990s, I happened to be in Bombay. And that person called the temple and said, and this was 30 years later, actually, 20 years later. And now he was very old. And he was materially useless. And his family was not treating him at all nicely, and they basically wanted him to just leave. And I happened to be there at the time when he was calling the temple and saying, please, take me to Vrindavan. He was too weak to even go by himself. Please take me to Vrindavan. Please take me to Vrindavan. Please take me to Vrindavan. And what Prabhupada knew at that time, I don't know. I can't say. But that man was, and maybe he even didn't want to remember what Prabhupada had requested him to do. But he had given his life. Everyone has to give their life to something. But he had given his life to those who didn't protect him when he no longer had anything else to give. So it was very, very, very sad. And he never got to Vrindavan, actually, because that's what happens. For one reason or another reason or another reason, it's, next week I'll be able to go, next 2 weeks, first I have to do this and first I have to do that. I'm not making a case that everyone should immediately go to Vrindavan. But what I'm saying is that when Krishna, sometimes he gives us opportunities to take a step closer to him. And of course, when you take your step closer to Krishna, you're taking a step away from other things that we may not want to take a step away from, even though we have so many reasons, But yet if Krishna lets you know that you should take the step, remember this little story and take that step. And then so many questions can come from that. Well, how do you know it's really Krishna who wants you to do it? Maybe it's just your mind just trying to escape your responsibilities or something like that. So many different questions can come like that. And of course, the answer is you have to, first of all, if Prabhupada tells you to do something, then you know. Another answer is that you go to those who you trust, and then you ask, you get everything confirmed. Those who you trust, and if you don't have anyone you trust as more spiritually advanced than you and more spiritually really interested in your welfare, who could really advise you, then that's an unfortunate situation. Because then you're forced to rely on your own mind. And we already know that our minds aren't the most reliable of all things to listen to. Yes. But Mahaprabhu was on the path. And he was preaching in this way. And now, this is what I really wanted to speak about. So Kaviraj Goswami continues. Whatever I have stated about the beginning of the Lord's tour should also be understood to hold for as long as the Lord toured South India. So he always acted in this way. Continuing. When Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to the holy place known as Korma Kshetra, he saw the deity and offered prayers and obeisances. While at this place, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, when it was in his usual ecstasy of love of Godhead, and he was laughing, crying, dancing, and chanting, everyone who saw him was astonished. Because what is it that this person is internally experiencing that is causing these external manifestations? And he wasn't a crazy person on the material level who his mind wasn't functioning properly. No, this was something completely different. But what was it that he was experiencing inside that caused him to cause these external manifestations? And later on in the book, and earlier, and especially in many, many places, this will actually be described, and our acharyas have explained this. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained it. He's experiencing different aspects of his relationship with Krishna. Krishna is doing this, and causing him to laugh. He's alive with Krishna, and Krishna is alive in him. It is possible, and Mahaprabhu was teaching this, but it takes love for Krishna. Krishna doesn't just come and live in anyone's heart unless he's really welcome there and the heart is fully clean. This is described in the 12th chapter of Madhya Lila, later on at the Rath Yatra ceremony. The cleansing of the Gundicha temple. The heart really must be clean, and a clean heart means that there is no uncleanliness. And uncleanliness means materialistic, selfish, petty desires. And in one of Prabhupada's purports, he said that when you want Krishna to live in your heart, you should thoroughly cleanse it and then hold a festival and invite him to live there. And then feed all the devotees. So you can ask yourself, do I want Krishna to live in my heart? Yes. Do I want to have a heart that's suitable for Krishna to live in? Vrindavanam prityaja padam ekam nagacchati. So sometimes I think, why doesn't Krishna really make it easy to get to the spiritual world, to get to Vrindavan? Why is it so hard? I have to have full faith. I have to be completely trust. I have to be completely pure. Well, the answer I've learned to give myself is that I just can't. It's not that Krishna is keeping us from the Goloka Vrindavan. It's my consciousness that's keeping me from Goloka Vrindavan. And that if I just can't be there with this current consciousness. And the example, when I say things like this, the example I give is, what will I do in Vrindavan? Everyone is in love with Krishna. And they're only concerned about his pleasure. And when the gopis are seeing that Krishna is walking out into the fields, herding the cows, and they're worrying that his soft feet, his tender feet, which are as tender as a newly grown banyan leaf, they're afraid that he's going to step on a pebble or a sharp thorn or a rock or something like that. The concern is only for Krishna, and it's everyone in Vrindavan is like that. The trees are bowing down to give shade to Krishna. They're giving fruits. The peacocks are dancing for his pleasure. The rivers, the Yamuna is flowing in such a way that they're offering Krishna water, the sweetest of waters. Everyone in Vrindavan just loves Krishna. And if I'm selfishly thinking about myself all the time, what will I do there? I'll think, what about me? Have you forgotten someone? I'm here also. And then I want to take a selfie and send it to all my friends. Guess who's with Krishna right now? It's me. Well, I can't be there with this consciousness. So the devotees who really want to be with Krishna, they see their consciousness is not qualified to be with Krishna. And when they chant, their chanting is a really calling to Krishna, a real calling to Krishna. Unless you are merciful to me, what hope do I have? There's in one Vyasa Puja offering that Srila Prabhupada made to his Guru Maharaj, he said, have no hope to be in Vrindavan for crores of births, hundreds of thousands of births. This is Prabhupada speaking. This is the characteristic of all real Vaishnavas, true devotees who they feel themselves fully unqualified, and their chanting therefore is a sincere calling to Krishna. Complete, full-hearted calling to Krishna. So when I think of this point, and I think of my own chanting, it's very embarrassing. Wall at this place. What place was it? Sweta? Huh? Have you been there? Has anyone been to Caritamrita? Yes. What is it like there? Huh? Have you seen the deity of Koma? How big is the deity? But that's like asking how big is Matsya. At one point he's like this, and then the next time he's so big he can't even fit in the cricket stadium. Thank you. When Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to the holy place known as Caritamrita, he saw the deity and offered prayers and obeisances. While at this place, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was in his usual ecstasy of love of Godhead, because he was with Krishna always. He was laughing, he was crying, he was dancing and chanting. everyone who saw him was astonished. And after hearing of these wonderful occurrences, everyone came to see him there. And when they saw the beauty of the Lord and his ecstatic condition, they were all struck with wonder. Just by seeing Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone became a devotee. They began to chant Krishna and Hare and all the holy names. And they were all merged in a great ecstasy of love, and they began to dance, raising their arms. And always hearing them chant the holy names of Lord Krishna, the residents of all the other villages also became Vaishnavas. By hearing the holy name of Krishna, the entire country became Vaishnava. It was as if the nectar of the holy name of Krishna overflooded the entire country. A flood of nectar. And everyone was drowning in that nectar. After some time, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his external consciousness, so he was very much internally absorbed, and then after some time he manifested external consciousness, and a priest of the Lord Karma deity gave him various offerings. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mode of preaching has already been explained, and I shall not repeat the explanation, Kaviraj Goswami says. And whatever village the Lord entered, his behavior was the same. Now, excuse me. In one village, there was a Vedic Brahmana, and his name was Kurma. He invited Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu to his home with great respect and devotion. This Brahmana brought Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. He washed his lotus feet. Remember, he was in contact with Mahaprabhu. So we've already heard what it's like being in contact with Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So he brought him to his home. He washed his lotus feet. And with his family members, he drank that water. With great affection and respect, that Kurma Brahmana made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eat all kinds of food. Yeah. Anek prakar sneha bhikka korela kosanida sheshana sa vansi koila. After that, the remnants were shared by all the members of the family. So with great affection and respect, fed Mahaprabhu. The Brahmana then began to pray. "Oh my Lord, your lotus feet are meditated upon by Lord Brahma." So that means he understood who Mahaprabhu was, that he was the Supreme Lord. He didn't take him even as an ordinary exalted sannyasi, a devotee. Your lotus feet are meditated upon by Lord Brahma, and these very lotus feet have come into my home. My dear Lord, there is no limit to my great fortune. It cannot be described. Today my family, birth, and riches have all been glorified. In other words, my life has become perfected just by you coming to my home, and my family and my forefathers. Everything that I have has been offered to you in your service, and that is the perfection of everything that I have, the birth I have, whatever I have. It's offered to you in your service. There is no divided mind for him. Now, these purports are very important, but if I read them, there's no if I read them. I can't read them right now. Prabhupada does say that this Brahmana was very happy already. But listen to what he says. Excuse me. There was no limit to my fortune. But he then begged Caitanya Mahaprabhu, my dear Lord, kindly show me favor and let me go with you. I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery caused by materialistic life. And there he was happy. But once being in the presence of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the happiness that he was experiencing in his family life, in his good birth, in his good family, in his wealth, in his comforts, and being in high birth, they were placed in a different perspective by being in the presence of Mahaprabhu. And suddenly those things which are the cause of his happiness he considered them not at all the cause of his happiness, rather the cause of his suffering. So, and now Mahaprabhu, being a sannyasi, staying in his house for one night, he was going to leave. Suddenly, previously he was in darkness, getting happiness from things that really don't bring happiness on the deepest level. And then this person comes in, the Supreme Lord comes in, illuminates his house. Illumination means with knowledge, with realization. And now the next morning, he's going to leave. And what's his greatest fear? His greatest fear is that the lights will go out. And after tasting this sweetness, then I'll be back into my usual consciousness. Sometimes standing in front of Radha Ballava, or sometimes standing close to Giriraj Govardhan in Vrindavan, and we hold retreats there, and inevitably at the end of the retreat, someone will ask, this experience is completely different. They don't say that, but they say, how can I take this with me? And I say, you can't. And then I say even more disturbing things. By the time you get in your taxi and are halfway to Delhi, 3/4 of it will be gone. And when you pass through security at the airport, 99.9% of it will be gone. Because you're forced to enter into the reality and the consciousness of the airport. If you say, I don't want to go through security, then you'll be even worse trouble. But yet, you'll have had something. Tasted something. You've gathered a jewel that is yours forever. It may become a little covered when you stand in front of Radha Ballava. We tend to take it for granted, I think, that you're looking at Radha Ballava and going to tell you, you're entering a different universe, practically speaking. You're entering their bubble of existence rather than it takes over your bubble, usually, or it can, if you're paying any attention to how beautiful they are. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? No, you. Do you know what I mean? Have you had that experience? Tell me the truth. Don't be afraid. I won't bite you. At least I won't bite you very much. Has anyone had that experience? It's so sweet. And then you walk out and then you completely forget. I've had that experience. That's why I'm saying it. And as soon as I take prasadam, I'm up there gossiping with everyone. Just talking about this and that, and he told me this and she told me that. And my heart, instead of being open and full of wonder and sweetness, it comes like this. You're so fortunate that you never have that experience. You probably take Radha Vallabha with you wherever you go, even at this very moment. Please, my dear Lord, he's frightened. The light will go out. Kindly show me favor and let me go with you. I can no longer tolerate the waves of misery caused by materialistic life. That which he thought was pleasure has now been revealed as not pleasure at all. And Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied, don't speak like that again. Better to remain at home and chant the holy name of Krishna always. Griha Rahi Krishna Nama Nirantara Laiva. Not just stay at home, but stay at home and chant the holy name of Krishna always. But not only stay at home and chant the name of Krishna always, but instruct everyone. Yara Dekha Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agyay Kuruhai Tare Desh. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in the Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. He gave him a service. Chant and preach. But I'm so unqualified. How can I become guru? How can I preach? And Prabhupada would often say this, Amara Agyay Guruhai, on my order. This is what Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is ordering to anyone who has been touched by his mercy. But it's not over yet. He further advised the Brahmin Korma, if you follow this instruction, if, again, a conditional clause, if you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home will not get in the way of your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regulative principles, we will again meet here, or rather, you will never leave my company. I'll read Prabhupada's purport. And then I'll read one more verse. Prabhupada says, this is an opportunity for everyone. Raise your hand if you're not included in everyone. Even you. What's your name? Ashish. Are you included as one of those who are in everyone? Even though you are someone, you're still part of everyone. Yes? This is an opportunity for everyone, even Ashish, if one simply follows the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu under the guidance of his representative and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, teaching everyone as far as possible the same principle. The contamination of the materialistic way of life will not even touch him. I should probably read that another 5 or 6 or 10 times, but I won't, because you all have this same book on your mobile phones, and you always carry your mobile phones with you. Raise your hand if you don't have your mobile phone with you at this point, at this time. I also don't, because I knew I was going to say that, so I was going to make sure I wasn't going to be the one who carried it. even, it does not matter, listen to this, it does not matter whether one lives in a holy place like Vrindavan, Navadvip, or Jagannath Puri, or even in the midst of European cities where the materialistic way of life is very prominent. If a devotee follows the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he lives in the company of the Lord. Wherever he lives, he converts that place into Vrindavan and Navadvip. This means that materialism cannot touch him. This is the secret of success for one advancing in Krishna consciousness. Did you hear this? What did you think? Secret. Now, at whosever house Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted his alms by taking prasadam, he would convert the dwellers to his Sankirtan movement and advise them just as he advised the Brahmin named Korma. So wherever Mahaprabhu was given prasadam, this instruction applies perhaps. Raise your hand if you have Mahaprabhu in your home. Do you feed him? Well, he would give them the same instruction. The cult of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada says, is explained here very nicely. One who surrenders to him and is ready to follow him with heart and soul does not need to change his location, nor is it necessary for one to change his status. One may remain a householder, a medical practitioner. Raise your hand if you're a medical practitioner. One. Engineer, or including software engineers, mechanical engineers, any civil engineers? Okay. Or, so if one remains a householder, one may remain a householder, a medical practitioner, an engineer, or whatever. Raise your hand if you're a whatever. I'm a whatever. One only has to follow the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and instruct relatives and friends and the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. But, Prabhupada didn't say but I'm saying it, one has to learn humility and meekness at home, following the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that way, one's life will be spiritually successful. One should not try to be an artificially advanced devotee, thinking, I am a first-class devotee. Such thinking should be avoided. It is best not to accept any disciples. One has to become purified at home by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and preaching the principles enunciated by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Then one can become a spiritual master and be freed from the contamination of materialistic life. Now there's one sentence that Prabhupada said that really struck me. One has to learn humility and meekness at home. What does that mean to you? Raise your hand. Yes, raise your hand if you, what does that mean to you at home? What does that mean to you? Raise your hand. Only one, but wait, I want to see if anyone else is so brave as to raise the hand on this one. One has to learn humility and meekness at home. There's 2 people who have raised their hand. 3, 4, 5. None of the ladies are raising their hands. I don't know why. Oh, there's one. Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. What does it mean to you? Thank you. Trying to understand what others want at home. Who else raised their hand? Would you like to say? What does it mean to you? At home. Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
sense of proprietorship of
Sense of proprietorship.
thinking that I'm the owner.
I'm not thinking, it's Krishna's house, yeah. Didi's house, yes, thank you. All nice. Anyone else? Yes. To be tolerant. Yes. 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 Thank you. There's a saying in Buddhism, not that we want you to become Buddhists, but there's a saying, if you think you're enlightened, go spend time with your family. What it means to me is that homes should be peaceful, and there shouldn't be arguments, fighting at home. That's a lot to ask, but this is what it means to me. And the reason I say that is because one Mataji told a story, and this will be the last thing I say tonight, of an exchange she had with Prabhupada. In the very early days of the movement, the devotees were very young, and it was very, very austere. They were Westerners, mostly living in India for the first time. And it's not like living in India today, even where there was no electricity a lot of the time, this, that. There was, in the Calcutta temple, there was no water running, and they'd have to go out and take their bath in the pukur outside. It was very austere, and Westerners especially weren't used to that lifestyle, and they were always fighting with each other in the temple, with each other. So this Mataji went to Prabhupada, and it wasn't just Westerners. It's what happens sometimes. Because you can't hide yourself from those who you live with. And when there's pressure, not always the best part of us is manifest. So she went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I can't stand it anymore. I can't tolerate it anymore. The devotees are just fighting with each other. They're just fighting with each other. I can't tolerate it anymore. I can't take it anymore. So Prabhupada said, if the devotees are fighting with each other, it's both devotees' faults. It's the fault of both devotees, because it means that both of them are not humble enough. So what did Prabhupada mean? He meant that if two people are fighting, if one decides that I'm not going to fight, then there's no fight. So if there's a fight, it means both are not humble enough. That's what Prabhupada said. And with those words of Prabhupada, referring to Prabhupada's purport that one should learn meekness and humbleness at home, we shall end our talk tonight. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. No, don't do that. No one used to clap at the end of classes before, as if it's a performance of some sort. Yeah, I don't know Bharatanatyam dancing, so. Yes, it's already a little late, so. We'll have one question. Oh yes, Mataji, you're so enthusiastic. 2 questions only. Yes, Mataji. But you have to say it so loudly we can all hear you. Oh, Korma. But I have to listen.
I have many siblings. When we were growing up, we fight with each other. And if we fight with each other, we go to Father and then we say, it's like both of us. It's like
Or you go to mother. And she'd say, here, have you eaten yet? Take something to eat and then be happy. Yeah, those are the old days. Where were you brought up? What place? In Sri Lanka. Tamil Terima. Okay, just wondering. That's all I know, by the way. I just use my whole repertoire of Tamil has been officially used up. Prabhu, maybe not. This is Korma Setra? Oh. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Any? Oh, yes. And then the last, yes.
Well, you mentioned about, you were describing about that devotee's experience, like Prabhupada asking to come, the teacher, the retired teacher.
Yes.
And then he didn't go, but at the same time, like that things happen. So while you were explaining all these points related to that point, the question came to my mind that Prabhupada also shared such experience somewhere. That Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj asked him to take some camps or take up full-time service. But then he didn't. Then he waited for a couple of years. Then maybe somewhere
I never heard that, by the way, that Srila Prabhupada, rather the opposite, I heard. The Prabhupada said that one of his godbrothers said, why is he living outside in Prabhupada's presence to Srila Bhakti? He should be living with us. And rather, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, no, don't, I don't remember the exact words, but don't try to tell him what to do. In the end, he will do everything by himself. That's what I understood. But Prabhupada's spiritual master did tell him, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, to preach in the English language. And he did do that. But he did wait. So that's the point you're making.
So it's somewhere later on in his life, what I have read is that he said, I should have done that earlier. Take up the
mission. Yes, but also one lady in the United States asked him, why did you come now? And he said, because you weren't ready before. And really the time was exactly perfectly arranged by Krishna that he come at that time.
So how to understand both aspects, like why only this we feel like okay.
But what do you want to do now? We also balance that with Mahaprabhu's instruction to the Korma Brahmana. He said, what you should do now is not get on a boat and go to the United States and preach like Prabhupada did, but you should do what Mahaprabhu said now, to make your house suitable to be a place where Mahaprabhu will always be. That, if you can do that now, there's no loss and no harm, and it's just wonderful. What do you think? Yeah. And be humble and meek at home. Keep it a peaceful place. As far as possible, as far as practical. But then also, we get presented with an ideal in so many ways. And when we don't come up to the ideal, then we should be humble and meek and serve those who are more ideal than us. Good night. What to do? It's late. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Hare Bhava.